Moving on. Huh, Feel Good Friday. Feel Good Friday. Good Friday. We're going to feel good. Having a scheduled surgery. Okay, whether, yeah, well, scheduled is going to be planning to have an aneurysm taken care of or a valve taken care of or whatever the case may be. But if you have an opportunity to have it be elective, all right, leads to better outcomes. Typically leads to much better outcomes because everybody's better prepared. You're better prepared. You've got everything in place. You've got the family ready to update everybody. You've got all your checks and balances. The doctors have studied your case. They've had a great meal. They got good sleep, right? It yields to potentially better outcomes. And one of the reasons that this is positive is because there's time to prepare. There's time to educate themselves, yourself, etc. And this is all about educating about the procedure and gives you an opportunity to create your post-care checklist, your pre and post-care checklist. So let's take a look at this pre and post-op suggestion list that was actually created by the community for the community. All right. So there's a lot of different things. And we've talked about this before, and we're going to talk about it again. And I encourage any of you to send us an email at info@aortacope.org. If we're missing things off this list, look, this list was driven by you, created by you, meant for you. I'm sure there's going to be new things that we should add to the list. So please just let us know. All right. Some of the questions, thoughts, items, random of things that you should be thinking about before and after surgery. So it is strongly recommended that you have a loved one or a friend with you during your consultation or at your pre-op appointment. I also say have it there for your post-op appointment. And the reason is because you need an extra set of ears. You might be scared, you might be emotional, you could be tired, you could be brain wandering. Have that extra set of ears there to take notes so that you can review them at a later time. All right. You might not even retain the information that you're hearing. Also, another person that cares about you being present during these appointments, they might actually come up with some additional questions or have some concerns that you didn't even think about. So it can only benefit you to have somebody else. All right. Make a list of topics of questions that you want to discuss with your physician during that pre-op appointment and things you want to ask your surgeon. So here are some suggestions of the questions. How many hours do you think surgery is going to last? That's important. You want to have an expectation. How long do you think you're going to actually be in the hospital? Is it a day? Is it 3 days? Could it be 5? Could it be 10? What would be the scenario that would keep me in the longest? What would be maybe those complications? I just thought of that just now. What is the exact procedure that you're doing? Review that again. Okay. Have them draw you a diagram so that everybody's on the same page and understands what's going to be happening to you. Are you replacing my valve? Let's make sure we're on the same page with what type of valve. Discuss the benefits. We've already gone through that here online, but talk about the benefits of a different type of valve. Make sure that you've made all these correct decisions for you. What can you expect when you wake up? This is a big question that people ask the community. Am I going to be able to breathe? Am I going to know that there's a breathing tube in? Is this like other surgeries where I wake up and it's already out? Is my throat going to be sore because there was a breathing tube? For some of you, having all of these questions answered puts you in a much calmer, in control place. And it makes a difference to your psyche. For others, you may just not want to know. And whatever works for you. This is strictly a list of suggestions. Pain management. Regardless if you want to know, this is one that I highly recommend that you have your pain management plan ready to go. And I recommend this for a variety of reasons. Some doctors have a PCA, patient controlled, I can't remember the A, but I think it's in this list, where you can push the button and administer your own pain medication. You can push the button 10 times in a row. It's only going to work after the first push. So it doesn't matter. You're not going to overdose by pushing your button 50 times. You're only going to get the one dose. It's not going to work until time-wise you're eligible for the next dose. But are you going to have that? Are you going to have an epidural and literally feel nothing? And if that's the case, when it starts to wear off, will you have some type of pain management plan in place? Like how does that work? That's just important. Also, in a post-COVID era, can a loved one spend the night? If you're in the ICU, they cannot spend the night. That we already know. The ICU is typically 2 patients for 1 nurse. And there is just not the room for somebody to spend the night in there. It's your time for quiet time. It's important that when those visiting hours are done, you are there. You need anything, hit the button because your nurse will be right there or your tech. This is your time to heal and recover. If you get moved to a step down unit, yeah, there may be a chance that a loved one can spend the night. All right. If you're somebody who tends to become anxious, discuss this with your physician ahead of time because they may be able to give you some type of like take the edge off medication before your procedure. Maybe a little Ativan. I know that stuff can go a long way if that's something that you're really into, but if you're really nervous, ask for it. I get really nervous, but I haven't asked for it, but I've gotten something, and it really made so much of a difference that I didn't even know. I didn't know when I was being rolled in, which is probably for the better. So personal choice, have those conversations with your physician. We already talked about see if a family member can stay with you in the hospital. All right, things to pack as little as possible. That should be the one and only answer. And the reason is because everything you bring in is all things you have to take home. On top of that, there could be cards, balloons, stuffed animals, or flowers once you get to a step down unit. I think they'll let you have cards in the ICU, but you can't have flowers, you can't have balloons. So, but when you get to the step down, you can have all those things. And look, having your own pajamas is wonderful, right? Somebody suggested silk pajamas because they're just so not, they're nice. You don't want to get blood on something that's nice, right? Stick with what the hospital gives you, in my personal opinion, because let that get, ruined or stained or whatever. It's easy. You're taking your sponge bath, or if you get to the point to take a shower, you just toss it and let them give you a new one. I don't know, a personal choice, but you have to think about your clothes when you get home. And so you really don't want anything that you have to lift your arms over your head because you might not be able to do that depending on the procedure that they give you. All things to talk to your physician about. Slippers or socks with tread. So if you want to bring your own slippers and they're the kind that you just slip your foot into, be careful because they're going to get you up to do a lot of walking and you don't want to accidentally trip. So my opinion, I'd rather see a moccasin or like a shoe type of slipper that you can put your foot fully in so it doesn't flop off while you're trying to walk with your IV pole down the hallway to get your steps in. If you like them because they're nicer than what the hospital gives you, because they will put treaded socks on you, then do it. If it's going to make you feel better, think of home, they're plusher, they're whatever, then bring a pair of socks. Women, don't worry about a bra. If you're going to have open heart surgery, there's a lot of hospitals. When you wake up, you will have a front closure bra. They're the most comfortable things in the entire world. They will be your new best friend. Pay for the money to have the hospital send you home with an extra pair or two. This is probably something you might live in for a while afterwards. You won't be reaching behind your back to clip or unclip or to spin it around. So again, depending on the procedure you're having, just toss all that stuff. It's not worth bringing all of that stuff to the hospital. You may not even be wearing it when you go home. Just something to think about. Okay. Essential oils, scientifically proven to reduce stress. They're very, when you go to the spa and you smell those smells, they are very calming. This has been around for a very long time. So if you like lavender or chamomile, rose, frankincense, you might want to bring a little thing of essential oils. It'll promote relaxation, but definitely talk to your surgeon. If you're going to share a room with somebody, don't bring it because they may be highly allergic. It may induce migraines for them, but more than likely you'll have your own room. And some hospitals actually give aromatherapy. I've been in a hospital that there was aromatherapy there for me because they know that they work. We're going to talk about this one in a minute, but there's one particular aromatherapy scent, and that would be peppermint. That is very useful if you're going to have a catheter during surgery, whether you wake up with that catheter in or out. A lot of times our bladders are a little sleepy waking up, and you might feel that urge to urinate, but you just can't. It's not coming out. So if you drop a couple drops of peppermint oil into the toilet, which allows you to smell the vapors, or the scent, or if you bring Altoids and just smell it, or even toothpaste, bring your own toothpaste and you smell it, it tends to relax the muscles and relaxes the bladder even more. And then a lot of people just urinate and they don't need to be recapped. Something to think about. All right, when it comes to packing toiletries, your hospitals are going to give you everything. I do not like wet roll-on deodorant. I like my stick. So I like to pack my own, especially if I've had time to prepare. I like to have my own toothbrush. I like to have my own toothpaste. But if you forget or you don't want to pack anything, the hospital will provide everything to you, including a razor if a man wants to shave or whatever the case may be. But bring the products if there's something that is near and dear to you, or if you have allergies or anything like that. Bring whatever's going to make you comfortable. The more you have familiar tastes or smells or things, it might actually help with your recovery. All right, so some people shower and others never do when they're in the hospital. I don't know. I don't know what that's about. It happens, it doesn't happen. There's time, there isn't time. I don't know. But they're going to give you a shampoo that kind of does washes your hair and your whole body. Mm-mm. Bring just like the trial sizes from the store, like when you go on vacation. Bring something that you wouldn't care if you left it behind in the event that you end up showering there. Don't forget to pack your cell phone and your charger, because as you become more awake and you're further into recovery, you might want to use it to communicate with friends and family, to play a game. I don't know, whatever you'd like to use it for. If you don't want to, then don't. It's, again, recovery is a very personal time for you to do just that, just recover. And maybe you need a little break from all the, electronics, and that's fine too. We talked about whatever you bring to the hospital, you have to bring home. So bring sparingly some things. Accept visitors. I highly recommend, if you can have a visitor, to have one. They will make you feel better. They will make you feel like it's home. And then they get to also feel better because they get to see you and they know that you're okay. But check to make sure that you can have visitors and the time and all of that good stuff, because you might be doing a lot of napping after surgery. Don't tough it out when it comes to pain. Mm-mm. Pain will create higher blood pressure. Pain can cause problems with heart rate. Pain can cause a lot of problems. So if you're feeling pain and it's not under control, push the button and let your nurse know. If you have, there it is, the PCA, patient-controlled analgesia, if I'm pronouncing it right, you can push it as often as you like. It won't administer more medication than what is safe or earlier or whatever. For patients who aren't giving the PCA, don't hesitate hitting the call button, because remember, in the ICU, as I mentioned, it's typically a 2-to-1 ratio, 2 patients, 1 nurse. So they can't help you if they don't know you're hurting. And we all know that the change of shifts happen. You don't want to wait for that, because then you might be waiting a really long time. So stay on top of it. Stay ahead of the curve when it comes to pain. And if you have any questions or concerns about addiction issues, please let your doctors know ahead of time, which is why we want you to talk to your physician and the staff about this before you're in that situation when you're in pain. Get up or sit or walk whenever you can. Push the button. Let them know, I want to go take a walk. Talk to your doctor about what day they're going to be expecting you to walk. What day will they have you meet with PT or OT if they do? Movement is always good for you. We talk about this all the time, and it's necessary to pass certain movements in order to be discharged. So you could talk about that as well. This one's a little controversial. If you're going to have open heart surgery, or if you've had a dissection, it has been recommended that your loved one or friend take a picture of you, if they can, before or after. And I think sometimes that's because we don't really have a very good memory of what happens in the hospital, and it really is bothersome to some people. They want to have some kind of record to see how they're doing in their recovery. So to have that picture, sometimes very helpful. For myself, it just happened. I didn't even give it any thought until we started creating this list. And again, I recognize a lot of people felt the same way. My husband in the first medical center took a picture of me while I was just uncomfortable, but after we had gotten the news. And I think he did that because he didn't know if I was going to live through this. And then the next picture is after the breathing tubes were taken out. And I look at my picture and I'm like lit up like a Christmas tree with a ton of lines and, IV lines and I'm in that magical black bra I was talking about. And I have a washcloth on my head. I don't even look like myself. I was just so plumped up with fluid. And then the next picture, I'm just on oxygen, and the nurse had washed my hair and put it in a bun for me. And you can just see, I'm like, oh my God, this is life so much better already. I don't remember these pictures. I don't remember these moments, but it's interesting to see the progression in a 6-day time period. And that was very helpful for me in my own recovery. So I've seen similar pictures from many of the community members of their time just following surgery, and it can be a little jarring. But when you kind of take a minute and look back and you see where you are now, it can be very therapeutic to see how far you've come. So, something to think about. All right. Ask a close friend or family member to provide updates in Facebook or on social media. People are going to be very concerned about you. How did you go through your surgery? Are you out? Are you okay? And it's so overwhelming for our caregivers to have to notify everybody. There's a website called caringbridge.org. It makes it very simple. You can actually tie in a nonprofit if you want your family and friends to consider making a donation, but it's used mainly for updating the community. It's a one-stop shop for your caregiver or loved one to just plop that recovery update in there, and then it notifies people that are following it. This is where so-and-so is during their recovery. So it makes it a lot easier. All right, ask your friends and family to bring their own cards, their own games, newspapers, whatever they need to help keep them busy as they wait. A lot of times they'll come to visit you and they'll sit for hours in your room and you're not even aware because you will fall in and out of sleep as you're recovering. So helps their time pass a little bit. Ask questions about your surgery when it's afterwards. Find out where your physician feels you might be in recovery. I know it's only the first couple days, but if you can remember it, it's validating and it's supportive and it'll help you when you are getting ready to be discharged. And you might ask the same questions over and over and over and over and over again. And that's okay. That's normal. It's anesthesia, just the way that it is. Open heart surgery equals crying. It equals the blues. It just does. It tends to happen more for men. But if you're sitting there and you're watching a Lifetime movie around the holidays and you're crying your brains out, or you see a commercial with a puppy or an elephant or a kitten, it's okay. Cry. It's very normal. It only lasts for a few weeks. We have somebody joining us right now. Am I excited at the sound, the bell? The bell just rang. Who's with us?
Jenny.
Hey, Jenny.
Yeah.
All right. You are in with us as we're wrapping up our week in review. We're just talking about some of the tips that we tell everybody in the community prior to or post-op. So you can give us some of your thoughts about that. All right. So we're up to number 14. We just talked about peppermint. I don't know if you've ever heard about this. I will bring this back up again, but peppermint can actually help relax your muscles, which will help encourage urination. Did you know that? It does. It works.
I had no idea.
It does. You know, the first time I was told about this, I had just had my C-section and they had uncathed me and they were waiting and waiting and it was hours and hours. And I was like, someone needs to recath me. I've got to go and it won't come out. And the nurse came in the bathroom and said, give me a second. And she dropped a couple drops of peppermint. She goes, go back in and try to go. And it was like instant. I smelled it and it just came right out. And I make sure that for all of my surgeries, and I've had a lot, that I always have Altoids or my own very strong toothpaste, and just smell it, and it just comes right out. So that's an interesting one. All right. This is another really important one. Sometimes when you've had surgery, your potassium or magnesium will drop. And if you need to have potassium, please tell the nursing staff to give it to you with saline. That should be a given, but I know people that have gotten it without saline, and to give you a slow drip. Don't turn it up because potassium burns terribly in the IV. It just does. It's the mechanics of potassium. So if you have to have it via IV, it's important to tell somebody to do it slow. There is a liquid form. It's disgusting. It's red. It's very salty. And then there's also a big, huge pill. So there are options to bringing in the potassium if you need to have it. But there's nothing wrong with taking in potassium in an IV slowly because you're going to be there for a while. You might as well take it slowly and, not cause as much trauma on your vein. So nurses are amazing. They are, but there are occasions where we're not meshing with them. They may be having a bad day. They just might not like you. They may find you're needy. Maybe they just don't feel like working that day. It could be anything. It's okay. Call the charge nurse and tell them that you need to switch, that this particular nurse is not working for you. This is your recovery. You do not want to hinder it at all. And nobody will know. It's not like they're going to be like, oh, patient in 12C hates you. They're just going to make a shift change. That's all. And just move people around. Nobody ever really knows why. But if it's to your benefit, advocate for yourself. Find out if your doctor is going to prescribe cardiac rehab. We all know that a lot of times, if you do not have your valve touched, they will not prescribe cardiac rehab because they only tend to do that if it involves the heart. And the valve is part of the heart and the aorta is not. So find out. And if they are not able to push through cardiac rehab with your insurance, then ask for physical therapy. And the reason is because a doctor of physical therapy has experience with this and will not only be able to teach you grounding techniques and breathing techniques, they'll be able to teach you how to hold up your posture when you can't arch your back, when you can't reach. They will help you build confidence and stamina. It will not be exactly like cardiac rehab with a running EKG, a heart monitor, but they will know to take your blood pressure before, during, and after any movements that you eventually do and report them back to your cardiologist. So I think it's a good thing to start, especially if you can't do cardiac rehab. Some survivors report having sore arms or shoulders due to positioning during surgery. This surgery can last a long time. And if you are feeling soreness especially in your right shoulder, then you might want to talk to your doctor about getting physical therapy and starting movement on that so you avoid a frozen shoulder. Okay, mental health. As talked about earlier, there are some survivors and caregivers that experience the blues, which is typically from anesthesia. It's normal. And some people experience PTSD. So if you're having nightmares, insomnia, change of personality, if this is lasting weeks and weeks, you really don't want to hesitate to call somebody. Let your clinical social worker know in the hospital, let your physician know, reach out to a therapist. We also offer support group meetings. So even if you're having a planned surgery and this was an emergency, you can still join the support group meetings. They happen twice a month, and there's a lot of information that's under our events section on our website that also gives you the link so that you can register once and join these support group meetings. The incredible thing about them is that the caregiver meetings are moderated by caregivers, and the general meetings are moderated by actual patients, just like you. So I think you'll find a lot in that, and you'll get a lot out of it. That's our very extensive list of pre and post-op suggestions created by the community for the community.